faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. That was an excerpt of the script of the radio drama The Adventures of Superman from the 1940s. Early on in Superman's story, he was simply a man of steel. He could do what the average strong man couldn't. At first, he couldn't fly. He could only jump very high. This was partially the starting point that Zach Snyder chose for his Man of Steel film from 2013. Of course, an even larger starting point came from the 6-issue comic book series called Man of Steel by John Byrne. It was released in 1986 and it served to effectively rewrite the history of Superman from the 1930s. And as a point of interest, Man of Steel would serve as a starting point for all future Superman projects. Today's video is sponsored by the Mordfall book series. Get your copies today. Detective Monica Ragner's daughter is thrust into the deadliest murder cases in her career. Fear and deception lay at every corner, and her fight to save the lives of others just may cost her own. Get Mordfall Disciple and Mordfall Paraben at these retailers today. As we can see from the cover, John Byrne wrote that Kal-El was the sole survivor of Krypton, arriving on Earth in an artificial womb. Upon landing on Earth, he was born and was found by Jonathan and Martha Kent, and of course, they raised him as their own. Snyder's film differs from the origin slightly, but he managed to keep the dark tone of the book and a lot of the content. However, some changes were made. It was maintained that Kryptonians grew children from birthing looms instead of natural births. However, Kal-El was written as the very first natural birth for generations. This detail marks Jor-El as a very capable scientist on the planet, as many others were unable to do the same. And of course, as the home world fell apart, he implanted the DNA codex for everything Krypton in his son, Kal, and sent him light years away to Earth. What happens next is why, after seeing Man of Steel 9 times, it doesn't get boring, like it is with Seinfeld. On past Superman movies, we see Clark Kent pretending to be clumsy and an underdog, pretending not to be confident and self-assured, only to break out his true self, who is surprisingly very arrogant, and of course, he could never lose. The problem with that was there is no real drama or suspense or high stakes involved because he's basically an apex predator with no real challenges. However, Henry Cavill played a different Superman, a Superman in which Superman was the alter ego and Clark Kent was his true self. He was confused about who he was and was searching for his purpose in life. He was more human first and foremost, and he was vulnerable and very humble. He was just learning about his powers. He didn't know who he truly was, and he couldn't even fly that well. In the film, Superman is doing everything to be accepted as a good person. He wants the world to know that he's there to help all of the inhabitants of Earth. It is common knowledge that viewers identify with the underdog, the person who has lots of challenges and they overcome them eventually, sometimes at great personal loss and or grief. He was portrayed as a human who had great abilities, whereas other Supermen were powerful beings doing a bad job of pretending to be a human. Snyder wanted audiences to see Superman as fallible, able to be beaten just as he is in the comic books, which is why Snyder made the effort to show that Batman was mere inches away from killing Superman. We don't know if James Gunn's Superman's legacy will be good or not. However, he's using the standard live-action Superman formula, the powerful being pretending to be a human. History shows that that formula of Superman was last popular during the era of Christopher Reeve. Like, share, subscribe.